Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are on our fantastic planet. And welcome to the Journey to CEO live stream. My name is Wayne Clarke here from the World Class Manager team. And it's an absolute delight to be hosting this live stream today because we've got a very, very special guest. And we're talking about a topic which I think is important in a way for everybody on the planet, which is about our careers and how we best maximize our skills and our experiences and leverage those for the good of ourselves, our families, and the people that we want to support as well. So today, with a focus on looking at our journey as a CEO, and there's a lot to learn from everybody's career journey. We've all got a very unique and a very, very unique journey that we've taken in terms of our career paths. And I think there's a lot to learn from each and every one of our career paths. And we're going to focus on the CEO perspective on this, because often it can be quite tough to achieve the position of CEO, certainly in a large, complex organization. And I think there's a lot to learn for our own career and development about how we perhaps get there. So I want to say a huge thank you also before we start to ACCA. We're in very, very proud partnership with ACCA. We've launched a program called the World Class Manager Program. So if you're joining through the ACCA network, and if you're an ACCA member, then a very special welcome to you as part of this program. We're going to be doing this every quarter, featuring a very special guest, and again, talking about their career journey and what we can learn as individuals in terms of that would help to propel us on our career journey as well. We're also conscious that we've got people dialed in and connected in on very different platforms all around the world. So we're just pausing for a second while everyone joins in. I think we're even over 200 people so far in the live stream. So huge thank you to everyone joining in. I'm sure that you've got a chat function or a respective communication device on whatever platform you're dialing in from, whether that's YouTube or on LinkedIn or Facebook or here as well on StreamYard. So please feel free to use that opportunity to submit questions as we get through the live stream. We've got Rose from our team live on the line, who's going to be picking up some of those questions and posing them to myself and also to our very special guest today. So maybe also we can do a very quick shout out. Let us know where you are in the world. Shout out your city, your country, where you're from, your organization or your team. Let us know where you're at. We've got Noyam here from Coventry. So welcome very much to the live stream. I won't read them all out because I'm sure there's probably too many. But again, a huge thank you to everyone dialing in. If you're watching this either on demand or live, then again, welcome. And we're going to focus as part of the live stream hugely on our career development and our career journeys. And as I said at the beginning, we've got a very, very special guest. So I want to introduce him. His name is Kamel Abouchacra. He's the CEO of Crowe Global. For those of you who don't know, Crowe Global are one of the 10th largest accounting networks in the world with over 40,000 partners and staff. I've had the opportunity to, I guess, both work with and get to know Crowe as a culture closely over the last few years, and I've been very, very impressed. If you don't know me, I began my career working in accountancy firms, actually as a consultant. I spent a number of years at Arthur Andersen and then at BDO. So accounting firms was the beginning of my career journey as well. And I think meeting with Crowe has been a real education for me and also been very inspired by the culture they've created and what an exceptional firm it is. And I guess clients tell us that as well as I hear from their people as well. So without further ado, I'd love to bring in Kamel, who's a very special guest in this very special live stream called The Journey to CEO. Kamel, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Wayne?
Very, very good. And again, a huge thank you for being part of this live stream. We're going to get into some great questions, I think, about your career journey and what we can, I guess, pick up selfishly, right, what we can learn from you in terms of your career journey as well.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I do want to thank you for really providing me with this platform today to share my journey, share my story. And I'd like to second what you said regarding the partnership, this great partnership that you have with the ACCA. As part of the profession and as a leader in this profession, I do want to give them a shout out for the great work that they have been doing to maintain high professional standards and really develop the profession and keep bringing in great talent. The world-class manager, big fan of that. So again, big shout out to you and really kudos to all the effort that you're doing in terms of building professional talent who are the greatest asset that we've got, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things we've learned on our journey, and I've had the opportunity now to, I guess, meet with more than 1,000 different CEOs from obviously 1,000 different companies in maybe 100 or so countries now. And one of the consistent themes has been, for many of them, I'd probably say more than 90% never began with the ambition of becoming a CEO one day. It was sort of, they just started and they got focused, they did a great job, and life evolved, and there they were. So I'd love to get into this in a moment to understand a bit more of your backstory. But before we do that, perhaps you could give us a brief overview in terms of what you actually do day to day. What's your job within Crowe Global?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for summing up, our organization and our culture, which, is something I'm very proud of. And, I like all our people to sing proud of the great organization that we all belong to and that great brand. So I've been at the job for about 15 months now. The honeymoon is over, as they would say. But a lot of the time spent, not to get into the weeds really on this platform, uh, initially spending time, kind of letting the vision resonate. Where do I want to take the organization? What is the next logical step in this great journey that we've had? And what that meant is really for me to sit down with that, make sure that it resonates, and more importantly, make sure that it's clear to me, and it's full of passion. Like my passion, my clarity becomes a natural expression in terms of really propagating that vision across the network and getting everyone excited, get everyone to buy in, get everyone really to rally behind it. So quite a bit of time really kind of wrapping my head around our strategic plan. What is my vision? Because every CEO, I believe, needs to come in and make their own footmark, right? They need to have their own footprint. They need to have their own legacy. And, I didn't necessarily want to be that kind of CEO coming in, business as usual. I wanted to have my own mark on this. So vision was really part and parcel of what I wanted to do first. So that worked out really well. And your energy around the vision becomes, radiates within the organization. And that's very important. So for any aspiring leaders, I one thing I do want to focus a lot is the importance of your energy. You need to harness that. You need to preserve your energy, because it's all about the passion and the energy that you bring into it. So a lot of time spent really kind of there. Now, make no mistake, the magnitude of the job what was really took me aback. And no matter how much you hear about it, it's different when you experience it. CEOs are overstretched. Just that's the bottom line. We deal with a myriad of issues and challenges, and I don't want to use a lot of cliche here, but there is a lot of disruption. There's a lot of challenges and issues really that any business has to contend with, any leader has to contend with. um, I think what became very clear to me was, in the midst of all the chaos, because really it is chaotic out there, you need to bring and harness the power of focus. Okay. You can't control everything, but there are things you can control. You need to be intentional, and you need to bring a lot of focus into what you do. And your ability to do that, and to get your team, get the organization, get all the levers sort of on track with that, and being focused and intentional, you start seeing the opportunity throughout all the chaos, in the midst of all the chaos. So the advent of technology, artificial intelligence, as an organization, we maybe we felt the churn a little bit at the beginning, but honestly, we are super excited about it. Really happy to make the smart investments to deploy it. Again, I think it changes your perspective really when you start looking at things from the prism of being intentional and doubling down and tripling down on focus. So that's a summation of really where this I've been spending my time, and not getting into the weeds.
Well, I guess this is the challenge, isn't it? Because in a world where there are infinite number of areas where you can deploy your time, your energy, and your attention, how do you narrow that down and select where best to place your time and attention in a world where, you're in demand? All of us, I guess, in every role is in demand so much. And I think this is an important point for those of you who are on their career journey, those of you maybe at the beginning of your career journey, not yet knowing maybe where you want to go. And we wanted to make this valuable for a few reasons. One is, you may have an ambition in your current company, in your current firm, and your current organization to progress and become more senior, especially if you're on your ACCA journey. you may have an ambition to run your own company and create your own organization of some description someday, or you may be new to becoming a manager. And again, we wanted to make sure that what we're sharing with you today is as valuable and is important for you as a key takeaway. So as much as we go through today, I'd love you to think through, when Kamel's sharing some of these insights, around what does this mean for you? Like, what can you practically take away from this? And I think what he's just shared is very important, which is how do you develop a vision? How do you develop in a way, like a plan of attack to make sure that you've got a very clear goal in terms of what you want to achieve? And what better time in the year to have a clear goal than January of 2025? So the second question I'd love to... Sorry?
All the resolutions, right?
Exactly, absolutely key. So in terms of your career journey and your backstories, I know you've been within the firm for a number of years and you've had very different iterations from your COO role to now being the CEO. Could you talk us a little bit through, in terms of your career journey, where it began and how you managed to get to where you are? And also, I'm interested, and I don't think I've asked you this question before, was this the plan when you began your career journey? Was one day CEO of Crowe Global, was this in the plan?
I'll be honest with you, no, not in my wildest dreams. Yeah, I'm not one of those who woke up one day and I want to run the world, or be a CEO or whatever. And it's interesting when you ask that question, because there's the what you think you are, and there's the perception of what people think of you. And there is a distinction there that I really want to draw on. I'll come back to it in a minute in terms of how that really impacted my journey and got me into this the space. But before I do so, I think the backstage story to it all is important. And it happened long before I developed any gray hair, obviously. Something that influenced me from my childhood, and really. You'd be a remiss if you don't sort of talk about your childhood and some of those early years and how they've kind of shaped you as a person, because I think it's part and parcel of who you are, your DNA, and kind of how you see the world, and why you choose to go in certain directions. And so the story started about when I was 5 years old. I am Lebanese by background. I'm an American Lebanese. Was born in Lebanon originally, in the mid 70s when the war started in Lebanon. I was uprooted with my family. We had to leave the country really and abruptly, let me say. And a lot of those images are still like pretty vivid in my mind. Destination was London, United Kingdom, so a country I have a lot of affinity for. But early on, the experience was actually quite challenging in many respects. At 5, you're used to your home, you're used to your routines and everything, and all of a sudden that gets disrupted. Let alone going into a culture that was foreign at the time, right? I mean, we weren't as connected as we are now. A language that I didn't command, so it came with a lot of struggle. Now, what that experience taught me was two things. First of all, adaptability. Your ability to adapt, and it's always resonated with me. Like my parents, kind of, when things got difficult, they always used like a simple term. Keep going. It's as simple as that.
I love that.
Yeah, and the other thing was it highlighted in my mind the power of harnessing discomfort and trying to be comfortable and meeting it with courage. Right? I mean, these are types of experiences that can crush you, or you can come out of it learning something. What did this teach me? And what it taught me is my ability to be comfortable when it's uncomfortable. And it really heightened just the move, from Lebanon to the UK, eventually made my way to the US and back and forth, etc. It heightened the sense of, multiculturalism in me, which is very important to the role that I do right now. So at that point, nothing really like on my mind in terms of I want to be a CEO, So I started my career with Crowe. I think what had helped me as well is I played different roles, to your point. First of all, I started working with the US member firm, Crowe US in Chicago. I was a staff auditor, spent several years there. So that kind of gave me a pretty good perspective and insight into sort of the Anglo-Saxon way of doing business and working for a large firm. Then went back to Lebanon, spent some time with the Crowe member firm there, and then eventually made my way to the HQ, the headquarters, where I'm at right now. And I did play several roles there. The key experiences that I took working from so many mentors and leaders was really invaluable, and I can't emphasize the importance of those. Those early interactions with those leaders have had a profound impact on me because each one of them, tackles the world in a different way. So my ability to see these different, styles, these different perspectives really kind of shaped me as well. So that was another really thing that shaped me. Now, going back to the distinction between perceptions and really how you feel about things. Initially, I was approached, it must have been 2004, related to becoming a CEO. There was a search committee at the time. We had a great leader who was retiring, and at that time I was in my 30s. But I was taken aback when I was approached by the CEO search team. Frankly, I was at a point in my life where I didn't feel I'm ready, and what's important is you need a circle of friends and mentors, etc. So I did consult with various people, etc., and didn't feel I was ready. That was the initial spark that kind of planted the seed. That maybe there's something there. Maybe that's something I need to evaluate. Fast forward three other iterations after that, or actually two other iterations after that, where I was approached again. And frankly, they were at different parts of my life. And again, the time didn't feel right. So I'm like, okay, man, I need to play the game. And with these things, it's always about timing, finding the right time. Now, going back to that childhood experience, when the opportunity came up in 2023, again, I was approached, and I never really threw my hat in the previous times because I felt like, it's not the time. This time, I was approached in 2023, and I took my time really to kind of mull it before giving an answer. What I found is I was going through this exercise and mulling it out and taking my time, and I felt I'm like sort of circular and almost thinking of reasons why I shouldn't do this.
Right.
And very quickly, I realized that, I'm uncomfortable. And what am I doing? I'm internally negotiating myself. And more importantly, I'm holding myself back. So that childhood experience kicked in like full display. And, all of a sudden I'm like, no, I'm not doing this.
Keep going.
Now is the time. Keep going. That's exactly it. Keep going. And I did. And, there's always a little bit of luck, obviously, with these things. I mean, you don't know what life throws at you, etc. But the key point is, play the long game. That would be one thing I would definitely tell people. Take risks, calculated risks, be adventurous, and don't think of yourself, don't hold yourself back just because of the way you see yourself. You need a wider and a bigger perspective because people see you differently in many respects.
Yeah, very true. Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. I wish we had more time because I've got another 100 questions. I guess what I'd love to understand a bit more about in terms of your journey as well then is, I think developing client relationships and understanding how to build not just necessarily external client relationships, because there might be many of you listening and tuned in where you don't actually have many interactions with external customers or clients. And it may be that you've got internal key stakeholders to serve as well. And the truth is, we all serve someone. Everyone in every part of the organization, the chairman included, serves someone. So, we've all got an important responsibility. I'd love to understand a bit more in terms of what you've learned on your journey around what sort of exceptional client service delivery looks like, because lots of companies talk a lot about it, but it can often be seen as being more of a mystery than it actually is. I'd love to understand a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And So my own personal experience, going back to it, I was truly in client service, right? That I mean that's always been my kind of career. Uh, to your point, we all serve clients, right? So the way I look at my current role is who are my clients? It's the stakeholders, it's my team, both the management and the operations team. Everyone is your clients, your board of directors, everyone is. But going back to my early years, career experience with client engagements, I think one of the things really that I felt has been a great anchor to sort of, gravitate to all the time is trust. How do you build trust? Because at the end of the day, really, I think that is the one thing that kind of keeps it all together, right? I mean, why you buy certain products, right? Because you trust that brand, you trust the product. Why do you buy, legal services from a law firm or professional services? Because you trust the people that you deal with. So I think trust was really one thing that resonated with me a lot over the years. The other thing to look at is the flip side of this as well is, okay, people are going to do business with you because they trust you, but what else is in it for them, right? And that's really centered around how do you build value? Okay, how do you build value? And if you think about it, my approach to it is with my team, with my stakeholders is, okay, what is the value proposition? How can we continue to improve that value that we bring to our stakeholders, whether it's our people, clients, communities, what have you. So that's another thing, like always approach it from that perspective. And one industry kind of, I mean, there's several that kind of jumps out here and stands out in terms of, value add and, bringing customers back, always, focusing on the customer experience is the hospitality or theme park, industry. Um, Disney. What's the next big roller coaster, right? So it's almost like this infinite game, or the hotel industry. One we have some insight into, obviously, just because of the deep industry expertise that we have at Crowe. But I'll give you a personal experience. I mean, and obviously everyone does it. They're not all great, right? And I can't sometimes wrap my head around their pricing. Nevertheless, the business model itself, definitely stands out. So I never forget once staying at a hotel in India, in New Delhi, and they were taking care of us. Like you had your sort of suite, and people check in on you like in the afternoon, etc. I remember coming in one day, and the person was like, "Is there anything I can bring you? You're in India." I said, "I'd love some mangoes." It was like 3 p.m. that day. Next day, I come to my room. The mangoes were sitting there in the room without me even asking for it. So it was like little things. I remember those were the days where we used to wear a lot of neckties and whatnot. I remember like my ties were scattered all over the place. They brought this like case with a zipper, like they put them in and like left you a little note. Oh, we noticed your ties were like scattered. So I mean, again, like from an excellence standpoint, I mean that those are like some really interesting learnings. But for the audience, consistency is incredibly important. Particularly in professional services. Business. I think it's very important. I think from just a skills standpoint, being an active listener, that there is this knee-jerk reaction where you're listening but maybe not actively, not within being intentional. You really need to listen and understand what the struggles are, what the issues are, to see how you can tackle them. um, you know Identifying problems is natural to a lot of us in the profession, but really being part of the solution and helping figure out what the solution is another thing that is I can't emphasize that enough. How can you be that partner with your client really to figure out a way to tackle potential problems. And I mentioned deep knowledge and deep industry expertise. You got to understand their business and the environment and industry that they operate in. I mean, I think those are incredible client learning experiences. And probably the last one I throw out there is technology. I mean, with the advent of particularly AI these days, I mean, there's so much power there. Like your ability to embrace that really provides you with an edge, because I think, let's face it, I mean, I think it's front and center headlines all the time, but like people are still struggling to figure out what's going on there. So your ability to sort of be ahead is going to give you an edge.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a story. I was in Boston a number of years ago. I think you spent some time studying there, right? You're in Massachusetts.
I did.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
And I was at a conference, and there was a lady who I'll try and find a name, or maybe I'll put it on the chat. But she was a sports agent, and she was the keynote speaker because she was famous because she'd not lost any clients she was in NFL, and she'd not lost any of her clients in 2 years, which apparently in the world of NFL is like impossible. And she was sharing the story of how she did it. And plus, being a female agent in that world is not that normal anyway. And what she said was the reason why she never lost a client was because every single time any one of them phoned, she'd answer the phone. And that was her secret to success. It was actually the responsiveness of her to her client base. And she said she didn't care what she was doing, right? Whatever time of day or night, she knew that if one of her clients called, and they were the most, as far as they were concerned, they were the most important people in the world to her, because they all felt like that. She never lost any of the clients. And interestingly, when I spent my time at BDO, we did some research to understand what clients really wanted and what they felt meant really great client service delivery. And we found of all of the things that we'd measured them on, and I'm sure there are infinite things that you could measure on, but the most powerful was what they called speed and responsiveness. So the degree to which they spoke to their auditor or their advisor or whoever, and how quickly they got back to them as far as they were concerned, was the key thing. And you mentioned it, what's in it for the individual. What people want is what they want. And often what you think they want is something different than what they actually want. So to be empathic enough to be able to tune into what they want and deliver that quickly, I think, for anyone, again, tuning in where you're new into the career, or you're going to be thinking about how do you develop these lifelong relationships, that is probably, I think, one of the most important as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. And if I can throw this in there as well, like to your point, particularly for the young talent, we're operating in an ecosystem right now where the apprenticeship model is really being tested. And maybe that's a good thing. I mean, people don't like change, but let's face it, change can be good. The isolation sometimes, and that was created during the pandemic, with folks being mobile, and your ability to have platforms like this and stuff. The emphasis on really, though, learning from your mentors. And I go back to my story. I mean, I've had some great mentors. I've had some great leaders that I worked with, if I didn't have that, I'm not sure I would be in the seat right now. So so you need to double down. If you work in a remote environment, these people are incredibly busy. You know what? Bug them to learn from them, bug them to spend time with them, because it really is incredibly important.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of emails now. We have a few hundred people connected into this, so be wary what you just said. One of the things I'd love to get your thoughts on as well, in terms of as you've gone through your career, and I think the thing that defines, I guess, anybody who ultimately makes it to a senior position in any organization is the degree to which we can get the very best from other people. And you think, lots of people can be individual contributors and exceptional at what they do. The ability, though, to, in a way, manage a team or lead a group of people, or maybe look at it the other way, the ability to have a group of people want to follow you is not easy, and to do that over the long run is really not easy. And again, I'd love to sort of understand some of your insights into leading and managing people. What have you learned so far on your journey?
Yeah, I think it's, the sky is the limit. You can't learn enough there. And to be honest with you, like every day you interact with someone, whether it's a client, whether it's a team member, you learn something, quite frankly. And I'll get back to it in a second here. But I mean, for me, it centers around two things: communication, open communication, and congruence. To be honest with you, Wayne, I mean, I think that kind of defines it all. I can't emphasize the importance of open communication. And, I mean, that starts to sort of come into more like, focus over the years, etc. With your human interaction and stuff like that. But communication is key, and not just any kind of communication, because we're all able to communicate, right? I mean, you can sit down with friends and you banter and stuff like that, but really, there's this whole thing around like being heart-centered, right? They're calling it authentic leadership, or whatever it is. I call it heart-centered leadership and communication. And frankly, why I say that, and that's kind of the learning from the past. I mean, if you asked me 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't even be able to wrap my head around what is heart-centered, communication. But what it is when you mature, you start saying what you feel. And I think that's key with stakeholders, in terms of buy-in. I mean, once it's coming from a place of authenticity, you're able to express that, passionately and with your energy. And again, as I mentioned, I think you'll be amazed sort of what kind of momentum you get and what kind of traction you get behind it. To give you a real life example of what it is, I mean, I'd like to call it the kitty test. Does it pass the kitty test? I have two kids, a 20-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I tell you, I mean, they right away, if my answer isn't convincing, they see right through me and they call me out on it. So, so the key test for me here, does it pass the key test? And it will pass the kitty test if you're authentic and if it's coming from that space. So I think that's one thing that definitely I would emphasize with the group. And the whole notion of congruence, getting people to be working in harmony, to collaborate with one another. I mean, that's the key here, because all organizations have great talent. How can you harness that? And this is where I want to go back to that notion of having an open culture. Something that I'm proud of, and you touched on it because you felt it. We have an open culture. It doesn't matter what role you play in the organization, you're going to be heard. I think people have great ideas. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're going to go execute on all of them, but like your ability to like really listen to your people. I think first of all, it gives them a sense of purpose, that what, I'm heard. I'm part of an organization that really lives its values. They care, and at the same time, you'll be amazed what great ideas that you get, like ordinarily that you're not thinking about. Particularly at times, we feel like we're sort of in like an echo chamber, right? I mean, which is a danger. I mean, it's your ability to sort of get out of that space and hear a different point of view, I think is definitely another thing that I learned. One thing that's I think has been really underemphasized over the years is the notion of emotional intelligence. Wasn't on my radar screen. I think it wasn't on many corporations' radar screen for the longest time. And I think there's been like an overemphasis on technical expertise. Now, all of a sudden, emotional intelligence is sort of like making its way into leadership and organizations. And I can't emphasize that enough, because I think when you're dealing with human dynamics, I mean, having that level of awareness and being able to have controversial conversations or what have you, and being able to like really be centered and focus on the emotional side of it, I think is incredibly powerful tool. And one of the silver linings of the COVID pandemic, I mean, if you can call it that, is all of a sudden we woke up to like, emotional intelligence, mental health, physical health, I mean, things that weren't on the radar screen. I mean, I remember, we were part of a culture where it's a rat race, and you power your way through. And what do you mean you burnt out? I mean, that's, everyone had their armor on. I don't know what that is, but it is very real. And then the last thing that I throw out there is really, when you think about it from a people's management standpoint, surround yourself by the best people. Do not feel intimidated, because you become an expression of all that talent. Really, that's around you. You get sound advice. You get like amazing direction in terms of where you want to take the organization.
Yeah. Well, I guess going back to I was interested with your mentor. So in terms of what you'd figured out, is there something that you could, and I never asked you this again, in terms of the relationship with the people that were very influential in terms of your career journey, especially looking at this lens of leadership and management, if you've touched on, and maybe again, looking at emotional intelligence and vulnerability and how people show up. Is there something that you saw or were sort of educated by one of your mentors that really made you see this clearer?
I think it's a combination of all the people that I worked with, because I've worked with all sorts of great leaders, and there's no right or wrong. Some tended to be a bit more, you're like almost like you encapsulate like different skill sets, right? Some were incredibly strategic, some were incredibly tactical, some were like incredibly like had a lot of emotional intelligence. So like how can you sort of bring all of that to help you out? And if I can sum it up, I mean, honestly, there's it's like I call it the 3 H's, right? The head, and when I mentioned like just sitting with the vision and letting it resonate, so that intentionalism and clarity that you have is incredibly important. So once you've got the clarity in terms of where you want to go, that's the first H. The second is the hand. And really what that refers to is execution. I mean, you can have the best ideas, but if you can't execute or have, the organization execute, then, it's not gonna go anywhere. And the third, Wayne, is the heart. So that's the third, and that's what I mean by like the energy and the passion. I mean, if you're able to harness those three, I think you'd be able to make a lot of difference really in your organization and in your own life, because purpose is very important, and that's one thing that really kind of came out of this is if your heart is in it, you've got purpose. You're waking up for a reason, and you're showing up. So I think those 3 H's like kind of sum it up for me, like in terms of being strategic, being tactical, and really employing emotional intelligence into it.
Well, I love the model as well, head, hand, heart. I mean, I've heard people talk about that before, but never really thought it through like that. I love that. Very simple and also easy to remember. And I think, I'm sure for everyone like me tuned into this, I think it's a nice way to think about the world actually, and think of where that means, which leads me to, it's a lovely segue. This wasn't planned, into I guess the final question, perhaps, before we can get into some questions, because I'm sure, well, I hope we've got a lot of people dialed in and connected in. So I'm sure we've got some good questions formulating, either for myself, but mainly for Kamel, is thinking about then for the future. So again, you came into this role sort of 18 months or so into this now, significant challenge, large global company or firm, 40,000 partners and staff in 150 plus countries. I mean, this is a lot for any human being to wrap their mind around. Then you sort of layer on top of that cake all of the sort of macroeconomic stuff, from inflation to prices to all the stuff, the geopolitical issues, all the stuff that we're trying to navigate. And then, and I'm interested, like, what's the process when you start to think of the future and how you begin to navigate all of this? How do you practically do it? And I think for those of us more junior in our career, when we start to think about developing a strategy or what maybe strategic growth actually means, I'd love to get some of your thoughts on how you begin to navigate this and what it looks like.
I'm happy to share some ideas again, and like without getting too much in the sort of tactical and the weeds, and like keep it like more focused on the soft skills, right? So the power of focus, I mentioned that. incredibly difficult. I mean, if you sit down, like, you know, you wake up in the morning having your coffee, you read the paper, and you're like just mind boggled. Okay, so trying to make
Yeah.
sense of the whole world is, as I mentioned, there's chaos. Focus is key. You know, what is it that you want to achieve, and your ability to communicate that, I think, you know, would give people the level of you know, kind of laser sharp focusness that they need, like in terms of you know, what they do. The other thing is, you know, I'm a believer of habits. You know, I mean, you don't want to be like a creature of habits, because, you know, that might like be detrimental in terms of, like, you know, making change. However, there are certain habits that, you know, you should be able to practice that I think will help. And the one that I choose to practice is the habit of growth. You know, and really, my vision is, you know, the working of as one vision. Simple phrase is predicated around the you know, our ability to work in congruence, to generate value and generate growth, really, and high quality growth. And what I mean by growth here, not just top line, because I mean, I think, you know, we get focused on the numbers and stuff here. That's all important, but I think that, you know, once you have the right level of focus in terms of you know, what levers you want to invest in, you know, I think growth becomes almost like a byproduct, believe
For
it or
sure.
not. So I don't think it should be the only thing that you focus on. So so I, you know, surrounding yourself with the right team and making sure that you're looking at the right sort of things, you know, kind of in your own overall environment. What are what's going on, what's disrupting, you know, and thinking ahead. Your ability to be ahead, I think, you know, gives you an edge. Um, so that's kind of like at a macro level. Now, at a more sort of biological level or DNA, you know, with an organization, I think one of the biggest challenges that any organization of you know, our scale would have is, how do you take that vision? How do you take that strategy and cascade it throughout the organization? And here, Wayne, you know, I read your book with a lot of intentionalism. You know,
Oh,
your
thank you.
ability to work that world class, you know, manager, very quickly kind of connected the dots for me, because it's vast, 41,000 people. You know, how do you get the message out? And if the message is not clear, that's where you end up in the organization with like organizational paralysis. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, people are not clear on that simple message and what you know, what growth habits are they're trying to do practice. So how do we penetrate that second and third layer within an organization? That's where I've been spending a lot of time, and I've been very focused. And just to bring it back home, you know, the whole idea around communication is really where I'm spending a lot of my time,
Yeah.
with my stakeholders, one on one with the team, with the our staff and talent. You know, globally, we're doing similar platforms like this. You know, internally, we're calling them CEO forums,
Right.
open to everyone, you know, and you know, their ability to connect with me and, like, you know, ask top of mind what's you know, whatever questions they've got, and, you know, continuing to drive that message around what is it that we're trying to achieve, and what are
Mm.
we all about. Town halls internally, to our staff, and again, from that perspective of open culture, you want people to feel that they belong. You know, you listen to them. I mean, to your point, no one leader can boil the ocean by themselves, you know. But if you think about it, if you can get the village
Yeah.
to work, you know, and in tandem, you know, and sing from the same hymn sheet, you know, you'll be amazed what you can accomplish. So a lot of time spent on communication, doing videos, spending time with our folks one on one, preserving your energy, and really, like, you know, getting that energy out there, and getting people to rally behind the strategy is you know, is incredibly important. And
Mm.
what I try to do is, and part of that growth habit is, you can easily get dragged into the weeds, you know, and it's all like normal for any leader. But your ability to really carve out time and sit with the strategy, and keep testing it and keep validating it and keep thinking that, when you hear about something that's happening in the profession, I mean, for example, right now, private equity, right? It's every week you hear about a deal. What is that doing to the profession? I mean, and how does that impact our vision? How can that be adjunct? How can that help us? What is our strategy when it comes, for instance, to private equity? Your ability again to think about what's going on a macro level and bring that into your strategic plan. So the strategic plan, what I found in the past is like you go through this massive exercise and then it just sits somewhere. You need to sit with it continuously and test it continuously and make sure that you're communicating all the time, because you can't communicate enough, particularly in a vast organization like this.
Yeah. So maybe we can move in a moment to questions, and we've got some of the team here live on the line to hope to field some questions, and we're going to read them the same time you see them. So this is truly a live reaction to live questions. I've got a final question, but we'll come back to that. Let's get in some of the questions that are in. So what have we got? Maybe the team took it off. Replay the question. Okay, so a question from Wahid Ullah. What are some of the biggest challenges you face in your role? How did you overcome them? It's a big question, Wahid. Thank you very much.
It's a very big question. Yeah. There's a lot of challenges. I mean, to be honest with you, when you run an organization and you've got a single brand globally, crisis communications, becomes like something that's front and center, and sometimes those come at you like a curveball, and you don't, no matter how prepared, you can't be prepared enough, and each comes with its own sort of quirks. They come at the worst time, and what ends up happening is really it's disorienting, quite frankly. So those are really some big challenges, and I mean, there's some level of confidentiality here. I can't get into them, but I think what's happening right now with social media, with news and stuff like that. I mean, you know what they say about news: if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. So unfortunately, whenever something is in the media,
yeah,
it's a crisis comms. So crisis comms is definitely a big one. I touched on human dynamics. So coming into the role, obviously you're kind of reviewing your management team and stuff like that, and you just want to make sure that you have the right people that are gonna make sure that they progress your strategic plan, etc. So kind of going through that assessment and transitions, and I mean, those can be a little bit disorienting as well. So really, the human dynamics piece is incredibly important. Those are two things that are probably I could single out. I mean, there's a lot of struggles that get thrown at you almost on a daily basis, but those are some kind of challenging ones that are nuanced, and you have to be very intentional and focused in terms of how you address them.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess going back to one of the points you raised earlier, Kamel, around the sort of adaptability, that's key to all of this, isn't it? The speed at which you can adapt to these changes, which are going to be constant, is really important. Another question it's a quick fire round, Kamel, from Joel here. So how do you know whether you're ready for the next step or promotion? How do you ensure that you're ready for the transition? What a great question.
I love that question. And, I was subtle when I addressed it, in terms of when I was asked the final time and I said, yes, I'll go for it. Here's the emotional side of it, right? The emotional intelligence side of it. I think there's some level of the imposter syndrome that affects all of us, and it affects us disproportionately. If I can be honest with you, Joel, I don't think you'll always feel ready. And frankly, just going back to that simple habit of practicing growth, you shouldn't feel ready. Okay. I think what it is you really need to take the leap of faith here, because if you're super ready, I don't think you're going to grow, quite frankly. You're gonna go in and you're gonna get challenged and you're gonna get beat up. But that's part of the journey, and that's the thrill and that's the fun part. So if I were to sit like in 2023 and think that am I ready? Like I told you, internally I was negotiating and I came up with a million reasons why I shouldn't. So so that's one thing I just want to highlight out there, like from an emotional intelligence standpoint, just be conscious of that exists. The other thing that I mentioned is people's perception of you. Your network is very important in an organization. Your ability to connect with your network and get some honest feedback from them as well will kind of give you a direction in terms of, you know, am I ready? Am I not ready? Again, I mean, I think that would be definitely something that I would focus on. And then the other thing is, you know, to the extent that this is possible, you know, going through some psychometric assessments, you know, whether through during, you know, whether with the organization or outside on your own, just getting a feel in terms of, you know, what makes you tick, how you're conditioned, you know, how do you approach things, I think would give you a lot of insight in terms of, you know, your next big role, to know how effective you can be and what are some like blind spots that you need to be aware of. But really, the short answer is I don't think you should ever take on a challenge like that feeling ready. You're not going to grow.
Yeah. And something someone said to me, Joel, once, I thought it was so brilliant and so obvious, is that every single person who's ever stepped into the CEO role has never done it before. You know, everybody's done this for the first time, whether they're in business or politics, right? Actually, politics is even more pronounced. You get these people who take on these huge roles and have never done it before. But like you say, as Kamel said, if you don't go, then you don't grow. Great question. So third question here from Umit. What keeps you motivated and driven to keep striving, given your role and the organization you're responsible for as its CEO?
Yeah, these are great questions. Really, I love this one. There's a slew of things. I mean, I can start rambling here, but honestly, one thing that I'm very passionate about is the people that I work with, quite frankly. You know, they keep me going. You know, again, it speaks, you know, volumes about our culture. I just think we have a great culture. And, you know, as I saw people sort of rolling in to the hybrid link, you know, some were saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, like different locations, you know, from around the world. It just like sort of resonated that that's my reality. It's like, you know, it's around the clock. You know, we've got like time zones from Hawaii all the way to Australia, you know, and like, you know, I mean, you cover so much. But really, the one thing that keeps me super motivated is the people that I work with. I think we've got like some great talent. I great support, you know, all around. I don't think I could do it without the great team that I have around me. And honestly, like all 41,000 of our people globally, they just, you know, they make you sing proud for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we've got time for one more question, and then we're probably going to have to wrap up. But this is great. We could keep going probably for another hour with questions. So, George, have you ever had any setbacks in your career? If you did, how did you deal with it and respond to them?
I've had many setbacks. Let me think of one that's probably like meaningful. So there's like personal setbacks, and then you've got like career setbacks, right? Like, I mean, career setbacks. Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned the COO role, Chief Operating Officer, and then going to the previous question around like, you know, do you feel ready or not? I mean, I took that role again, you know, from a place of a little bit of discomfort and you know, not being fully oriented or like, you know, kind of wrapping your head around like the magnitude of the role. And I try to do too much because, you know, everyone wants to come in and try and do as much as possible and you know, disrupt the place and make their mark, etc. I try to do too much in a very short period of time, and what I found is, again, you know, the lack of focus, you know, and having a plan over a period of time. I mean, it's good. You want to get things done, but like I started a bunch of different things at the same time, and very quickly it started to flop. And quite frankly, you know, we had like at the time some financial setbacks that were, quite uncomfortable to deal with, particularly when you're, like a year and a half coming into that role. All of a sudden, you're like, on the defensive, trying to justify and explain, some of the things that might have happened that it was all like well intended. It's just the timing wasn't right, and I think I was overstretched. That I wasn't able to sink my teeth and really spend time with the ones that are highest and best value. So that was a career setback. How did I deal with it? I think the biggest, my advice, again, like, take it for what it's worth. Admittance is a big deal. Some humility. Like, if you made a mistake, just come forward and say you made a mistake. And why you made that mistake. You can explain. The worst thing you can do is to sit there, know that there's a blunder, and try to justify it and defend it. Because again, I'll go back to that kitty test. My kids will be like, "Dad, get lost. We're not buying this." So that's the piece of advice that I'd provide there. But great question, George.
We've got one more. So how to set up the good strategy, and what kind of criteria did you consider before you set up the strategy? What a great question. Actually, I was trying to negotiate with the team because I said no more questions, and they said this is a must. We've got to get this question in. It's a great question. So final question.
I love this one. Where I think I was lucky is when I came into the role, the vision that I laid out, and the reason I think it got the buy-in was throughout my career at the organization. Now looking back and hindsight, I was kind of already living that vision, if you know what I mean. So I think it's all part and parcel, right? Not to over-engineer it or complicate it, but what's important is where do you want to go, and having the clarity in the destination that this is where we want to go. That defines your strategy. Okay, so I think that defines the criteria. Now, what we find ourselves doing in many respects, and we're actually going through a strategic plan refresh as we speak. We do that constantly. Like I told you, we sit there and we stress our strategic plan. There's this tendency as humans is we like to add things. Okay, so let's add activities. Let's add strategic initiatives. Your ability to kind of look at it from the bird's eye view, and discerning what's really strategic and what's going to add value and be high yield, right, and drive growth, versus activities and like to-do list and things that are more tactical. Your ability to discern the two, I think is key to any sound strategic plan. And what you'll find is it's a handful of things only that you need to be clear on, and you really have as part of your strategic levers. Now, where that rattles people is, well, that's not much. What are you going to show to your stakeholder? And that doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is the destination, key strategic initiatives where you're going to invest in and you're going to drive, and then you're going to have all the tactics underneath that. So those are critical. And then what's more critical is really the market dynamics, understanding the business, the industry that you operate in, and having some robust market research. I think will definitely be very valuable in trying to think ahead, anticipate. How do I make sure that we're not going to be the next blockbuster? Where's the Netflix that's going to come into this and really like almost make us obsolete?
Yeah. I think we're going to have like a round two here, Kamel. Maybe in a few months' time we can invite you back for a round two, because there's many more questions, and I've got a whole bunch that we've not been able to get to either. So we're again, out of respect of your time and everyone, thank you so much. I think you've been so generous, so gracious with your insights and your knowledge, and I think I'm 48 years old now. I'm going grey too. I wish I would have learned this stuff at sort of 20, 21 years old. This would have been so valuable for my career journey. And I hope for anyone listening in who has a plan to grow their career, be better, be stronger, do more, I think this is invaluable advice. So just a huge thank you from us as a team for you for sharing so generously your insights and your knowledge and experience.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks for providing me with the platform. Great questions. Thank you for your precious time, and continue doing all the great things that you're doing to develop our future talent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And also for those of you who are connected in, if you're watching this, of course, live, then thank you very much for being here. If you're watching this on demand later, thank you very much for watching this. We're going to attempt to get back to any of the other questions we've not answered, and we'll do that live online as well. And we look forward to welcoming you to the next one. We're going to announce this through ACCA probably in the next week or two, which will be early April. So again, we look forward to seeing you in early April. And between now and then, of course, next 90 days, we hope you have an awesome journey. And thank you very, 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 very much again for connecting in. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you again, Kamel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everyone.